Is it worth it to try and become a journalist in 2022? In this video, we're going to go over some pros and cons of choosing this particular occupation. Journalists have been hit pretty hard over the past 10 years. There's been lots of job losses. A lot of local newspapers have gone out of business, but things might be changing. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they are forecasting a 6% growth in the number of news analysts, reporters, and journalists over the next 10 years. Things might be turning around for journalists, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in the video. Journalists narrate or create news stories, reviews, or commentary for print, broadcast, and other communications mediums. In 2022, this isn't just newspapers, magazines, and radio. This is anything on the internet. And through these mediums, journalists keep the public updated about current events and noteworthy information. Some roles and responsibilities for journalists include writing commentaries, columns, or scripts, coordinating and serving as an anchor on a news broadcast program, examining news items at the local, national, or international level, analyzing and interpreting news and information received from various sources, arranging interviews, and more. Journalism is one potential career path. There's over 1,000 career choices out there. This is why we have a program called Choose the Right Career. Choose the Right Career is a 7-step program where we factor in your interests, your values, your personality, where you want to live, how much money you want to make, and more. Choosing the wrong career can cost you tens of thousands of dollars and years of your life. Check out the link below for more information. And for a limited time, we have a sale going on. Use coupon code WINTER-SALE for 30% off. So what are the requirements to become a journalist in 2022? Well, usually most positions require a bachelor's degree. But as I was going through job postings for journalists on Indeed.com, I noticed that there's actually quite a few job postings that don't require a bachelor's degree. Okay, the first job opportunity I'm going to look at is for ABC-owned TV stations. And notice that this one requires 3 years of experience in a college degree or equivalent. And this is for the vast majority of journalism kind of roles, it does require a college degree or equivalent. But every once in a while, you'll see certain job opportunities that don't require a bachelor's degree. For example, Voice of America. This is for an international multimedia journalist. Hiring one person. Notice that they're actually not asking for a college degree. The vast majority of job opportunities are going to require a bachelor's degree. This one requires a bachelor's degree, and it's for the Epoch Times of Southern California. But every once in a while, you'll actually find job opportunities that just require a high school diploma. So if you're trying to work for the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, you absolutely do need a college degree. But there are opportunities for people that just have a high school diploma and don't want to go to college. Next up, we have compensation. What kind of compensation can journalists expect? Well, the government they combine news analysts, reporters, and journalists into one category just because there's a lot of overlap between those 3 different occupations. So they have all those 3 into one category, and the average base salary for all 3 together was $66,000 in 2020. This was more than interpreters and translators, but there's definitely some other occupations that have a higher base salary, including court reporters, editors, public relations specialists and managers, and technical writers. But journalists have seen pretty good wage growth over the past 8 years. In 2012, the average base salary was $48,510. This grew to $66,000 in 2020. Notice that in the past 3 to 4 years, wage growth has actually really picked up for journalists. And right now we're just talking about the average journalists. The truth is the top 10% of journalists earn way more than the bottom 10%. In fact, the median salary for a journalist, reporter, or analyst was around $49,000 per year, much lower than the average. And it's because the top 10% of journalists earn a lot of money, specifically news hosts. According to the internet, Tucker Carlson earns around $6 million per year, Rachel Maddow around $30 million a year, and Anderson Cooper $12 million per year. All 3 of these people started off as journalists working for smaller publications. They worked their way up and they eventually became a news host. So there is that potential to climb the ranks in CNN, NBC, Fox, and make a lot of money if you make it to the top. You also have to consider that a lot of journalists, they don't necessarily have to work for companies anymore. Because of the rise of independent media, journalists like Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald, they're doing really well. They're absolutely millionaires. And they have huge followings on Substack. People might be giving them money on Patreon. There's so many ways to raise money and earn money as a journalist, as kind of an independent of any newspaper or cable news company. It really seems like this particular occupation is in transition. And that's why next up, we're actually going to look at the labor market for journalists. And I'm going to show you kind of a little bit of a scary chart. In 2012, there was around 51,000 employed journalists, reporters, and analysts. And this has been dropping every single year since 2012. By 2020, the government recorded around 42,000 employed journalists, reporters, and analysts. So there is less and less employed journalists, reporters, and analysts over time, but these are employed. This doesn't include the self-employed journalists like Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald. So in 2020, there's around 42,000 employed journalists all over the country. And this is actually, when you compare this to other occupations, this isn't very much. There's around 42,000 news analysts, reporters, and journalists. This is more than court reporters, but this is far less than the number of public relations specialists, public relations managers. This is less than technical writers, interpreters, translators, and editors. The other thing to keep in mind is because this is a small niche occupation, partially because it's a small niche occupation, the job opportunities are in very specific places. This is one of those occupations where you probably can't find job opportunities in random towns in the Midwest. You really need to be able to work in New York, California, DC, and other parts of the Northeast corridor. Here's a map, and as you can see, the vast majority of opportunities and employed journalists, reporters, and analysts are in the state of New York. So I showed you that the number of employed journalists has been falling for about 8 years. And this is due to Google and Facebook kind of eating up all the ad revenue. And there's just less job opportunities and less money for local newspapers. And that's been the story for the past decade or two. Local newspapers have been going out of business left and right. But we might be hitting a turning point because whenever I look at a certain occupation, I look at job postings. I look at data from Indeed, Glassdoor, and LinkedIn. When I searched for journalist on Glassdoor.com, there's around 2,000 job postings in the United States. On Indeed, around 4,000, and on LinkedIn, almost 23,000 job postings in the United States. We can then compare this to the number of employed, which is around 42,000. So there is actually quite a bit of job opportunities for people trying to become journalists. The other thing to keep in mind is many people that start off as journalists, they're kind of building this transferable skill set that they can use in a couple other occupations, specifically public relations. So working as a journalist doesn't mean you have to stay as a journalist. Next, when people are trying to choose a particular occupation, oftentimes they take a Myers-Briggs personality assessment. They try to figure out their type, and then they try and figure out if occupations would be kind of compatible with their personality type. According to the Myers-Briggs company, certain types are attracted to this occupation. According to the Myers-Briggs company, they don't actually have a type for journalist, they have a type for reporter/correspondent. The most likely type to become a reporter/correspondent is the champion, also known as the ENFP. This is followed by the mediator, the INFP, persuader, ESTP, and then the commander, the ENTJ. So those are some things to consider before becoming a journalist in 2022. The number of job opportunities has really shrunk since 2012 for journalists, but with the rise of independent media and with all the job postings right now for journalists across the United States, things might be turning around for journalists. If you enjoyed this video, definitely check out some of my other content on different occupations. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.